Welcome to the coffee break. I'm here as usual with my buddy Tom. What's up,
Hey
Tom?
guys, Alan, how's it going? Good to be here.
How was the past week for you?
Yeah, pretty good, man.
I did you look outside?
Yeah,
Seems like the end
po-
of the world is coming.
pouring rain.
Ned Stark was right. Winter has finally arrived.
Winter has arrived.
Winter has arrived. Israel is drowning. If you guys don't know, Israel is slowly disappears into the sea. Crazy amounts of rain, and as a third world country, we can't really deal with it,
Yeah,
right?
our infrastructure is not really
Our
built for
our
that amount of
infrastructure,
water at one time.
yeah, it's collapsing. People are drowning. Yesterday, I heard a kindergarten kids had to be rescued through like rubber boats from
Really?
just from the they were stuck inside
What?
they
Where did
couldn't
that
leave
happen?
the building, like the kindergarten building, the kids, because there was too much water around
Wow,
them. So they had to bring like the fire department or something, or the police had to bring like rubber boats to take them out.
that's crazy, man.
That's insane. It's insane.
They could have just like thrown them snorkels and like, okay, kids, each for their own, you know?
Yeah, man, fucking kids. Imagine like you couldn't leave your house because it was a river outside. Yesterday it was the street, now it's like a river.
Yeah, I guess that's what people in in cold countries like Canada or Norway feel when it's like snows a lot and then they just can't, the
Yeah, but
door's stuck, no?
they have the infrastructure for it. They're prepared, right?
Yeah,
We're not prepared. It's like you go to Paris or something in the summer and it's like
yeah.
40 degrees
Mhm.
and they don't have like they have to jump into the fountain to get
To
cold
get cold.
because they don't
Like
have
elephants in Africa.
yeah,
They
like
don't know what to do. They don't know
whoa,
what to do.
that was semi-racist.
That's so elephantists.
Hanukkah is this
Hanukkah.
week.
Yeah, great
Yeah,
holiday, man.
happy holiday.
I've been eating sufganiot for like a crazy
Yeah,
mofo. Like
I've noticed that girls like to talk about how much that for just for to clarify, sufganiyot is like a donut,
it's like
like
a
this
donut with jelly.
jam.
Yeah, with like strawberry jam. Doesn't have to be. Like there are other
Yeah,
types,
there's the
but
crazy types, right?
yeah,
There's
yeah.
some of the crazy types. Girls love to talk about how many donuts they ate.
Or how many donuts they didn't
They
eat.
didn't eat
Exactly.
exactly. It's always like it's either like, oh my god, I ate so many donuts, I'm so fat, or like, oh my god, I didn't eat any donuts this year, I'm
Yeah.
amazing.
I had nothing at all to eat today. Just an apple and a shawarma and and a tray of donuts.
But
And
with
that,
the
no,
diet coke.
that's actually, I have to be honest. That's from a stand-up show that I saw.
Mm,
It's not my joke.
damn.
Yeah. All
So,
right.
lighting the candles. Did you light candles at your
Yeah,
house
yeah.
every day?
Well, not in our house, but we go to other people that light candles.
Yeah.
We don't actually have a Chanukiah in
Oh,
the
you
house.
don't have one?
No, no. Bad Jew, very
Bad,
bad Jew.
bad Jew.
Yeah,
Very bad Jew.
very bad Jew.
In the news
In the
this week,
news, yeah.
Israel uncovered
A few
tunnel.
tunnels, right?
I know about one,
Okay.
but we woke up this week. I think was it Tuesday or one of the days midweek. This midweek, we woke up into a big announcement by the military that there's a special
Operation.
operation.
Operation Northern Shield.
Yeah,
S-
operation. Yeah,
sounds big, right?
sounds
Sounds like,
sounds
oh
too
wow.
big. That's
Yeah.
the problem.
Yeah. Considering what they actually did, it sounds a bit too big. Like from what I understood, they literally just opened. Okay, so Hezbollah, the terrorist organization in Lebanon, they dig tunnels from Lebanon into Israel.
Yeah,
So from what I understood, the army just discovered where the tunnels are and then filled them with concrete until the border. Like
yeah,
they didn't even go into the Lebanese side.
yeah, yeah.
So it doesn't sound like much of an operation to me, you know? I mean,
Well, that's yeah, yeah. People are really asking questions because
yeah.
you wake up one morning into a big operation, which after a few people think war, people think
Mm,
invading Lebanon, people think all sorts of things.
yeah.
When in reality, it's basically nothing. It's
Yeah,
not even.
it's
It's
construction work.
it's construction work
Yeah.
exactly. It doesn't have
Filling
anything to do.
concrete in tunnels. I mean, clearly, like, I don't think there's an Israeli that's like, oh no, we shouldn't have done that. Like, yeah, we should stop the tunnels, but there's no reason to make such a big announcement on
Yeah,
it.
that's the way that they present it is
Yeah.
strange.
All right. But speaking of tunnels, I have a surprise for you. I
Yeah.
didn't dig a tunnel underneath your house, but um, I had yesterday. There was a patient in the hospital where I study
Yeah.
from Gaza, from Sajaiya.
Voila.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Okay. Well, no, we treated him. He was fine. They suspected he has some autoimmune disease or something like that,
damn.
and then they suspected that he might have something else or not sure, so they send him to the department where I was doing the rotation
Mhm.
at, and yeah, we inspected him. I talked to him a bit. Good guy. He doesn't speak Hebrew at all, so we needed like a translator. But
They speak English?
no, not really.
Arabic, just Arabic.
Yeah, Arabic, and then if he
Why did they bring him all the way to Jerusalem?
I just think Hadassah and Karem is where a lot of them get sent to. Like
Just
this.
because there's a lot of Arabic doctors and stuff?
No, there are also a lot of Arab doctors in Tel Aviv and in Haifa and in other places. But I just think that that specifically is just it's a very um, advanced hospital.
Mm.
So I guess that's why. I'm not sure. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice. So,
Right.
let's continue. Do you
Yeah.
want to introduce our guest?
Yes. So today we have Tanya here with us from Denmark.
Hello.
Yeah. Tanya is my wife also.
Damn. How'd you do it? Is
Yeah,
it for the money?
of course.
Okay.
Of course. Why else would I do it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
She just really wanted an Israeli
It's
passport.
2018. You don't actually need to love people anymore.
No, of course not. Who loves anyone
Yeah.
in current year? So welcome, Tanya. Welcome to the podcast. It's nice to have you.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, and then we'll let people know why we invited you here. I think you have interesting input.
Yeah, well, I am 26 from Denmark. I was born and raised in Copenhagen, and which is the capital of Denmark for those who don't know, but I think most people would know that. And I study medicine. I'm in my last year, and I'll be a doctor next summer. Yeah, and that's, I guess, a very, very quick intro.
You're basically a
me.
doctor.
I'm
That's
basically
insane.
a doctor.
A real doctor.
A
Right?
real one.
What kind of doctor are you gonna be?
Eventually, I'll be a family doctor.
Family doctor.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's in many, many years. I still have to do a lot of basic training.
Why
and-
family medicine? Why that
family
specifically?
medicine? Because I really want to help a lot of different people. And I think once you specialize in cardiology or any of these other very, very, very narrow specializations, you have a certain type of patient that you're working with. And in family medicine, you have old and young and man and woman, and there's something wrong with their heart, they have diabetes, they have a problem with their foot. There's a lot of different things. It's a very broad
Yeah, there's a lot of
Basically,
variety.
spectrum.
You're basically the first line of defense.
First line of defense, yeah. So I like the idea of not really losing your knowledge about one thing just because you get really good at another thing. And I like the idea of working with the whole population, also the ones that aren't so sick that they have to go to the hospital. And then I like the idea of having a normal schedule.
Yeah.
You go to work like everybody else,
Yeah.
and you come home like everybody else. You're not
Yeah.
doing night shifts all the time and
Yeah,
not
doctor.
seeing your kids, and like you come home the weekend, you're like, oh
Yeah,
my god, my
doctors-
kid broke their leg. What happened?
Yeah,
Like,
doctors
you don't even
work.
know.
It's crazy how doctors work. I
In
don't understand.
hospitals.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
understand how they can do these like 36-hour shifts.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have 36-hour shifts in Denmark, but we still have long shifts.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have 18-hour shifts.
still
That's
long.
the longest one you do.
Still very long.
It's very long. It's very long. Yeah.
So how a girl from Denmark married this guy?
The money, clearly. No,
No,
I'm
but how?
kidding.
No, I'm asking like how. Well, first of all, what are you doing here? What are you doing in Israel? Why did you come to Israel? And
Well, currently I'm doing a semester abroad. I actually just finished my rotations. I was there for 12 weeks in pediatric surgery in the same hospital where Tom also studies. But how did I come to Israel? That was a complete chance encounter. I wanted to do a summer exchange program where you just do a month of rotations in a foreign hospital. And
A
we
month?
have, yeah, a month,
1 month.
1 month.
Okay.
And we have an organization in Denmark called IMCC. It's a international organization. It's something like International Medical something Cooperation. I'm not exactly sure what the last C is, but they work with other organizations around the world to exchange medical students. And just not just exchange, but international medical cooperation. And I applied there for bunch of countries. I think Israel was my 8th priority. I wanted to go
Really?
to I wanted to go to South America really bad. So I ended up in Israel.
It's your 8th priority.
It was my 8th
Damn.
priority, yeah.
Well, it's more south than Denmark. I guess they thought it would fit. It's like
It's fucked
Yeah,
up.
yeah. I mean, it's basically a lottery, and then they take your vote.
We were
into
your 8th
consideration.
priority.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
it's
because
fucked up.
when people don't know it, like where would they want to come?
It's
Like
sad.
what if they don't know anything, why would they want to?
No, I honestly I didn't know the story, but I was sure you'll be like. It's the first time hearing this, but I was sure you'll be like, I always wanted to come to Israel. It was
No, I never wanted. I was like, okay, wow, all these countries. I guess Israel should fit in there somewhere. But it's only because I didn't want to travel Europe because I'm European, so it's kind of boring for me. So Europe was all my last priority. So it was something like all of South America, Asia, Australia, then Israel, and then Europe.
Why did you want Israel in the first place? Did you think it would be like Doctors Without Borders or something where you go to?
No, it's just a fun experience. Like to go out of Europe, because the thing is, we have the European Union, so the medical treatment, the whole dogma of how you treat medical conditions in Europe is kind of streamlined. And I thought it would just not be the foreign experience if you went somewhere in Europe. So I wanted to go outside of Europe, and Israel's outside of Europe. So
you
that's
just
why you were on the
chose-
list.
So you just chose all the distant, like,
Yeah, I
like
figured-
different places.
I figured I'd come help some people who didn't know how to, wipe
How
their
was-
butt or go to the toilet. No, I'm kidding.
How was how was like your first days here when you just landed?
Hot as hell. Yeah, I went here in the end of June, and the hottest 2 months in Israel, July and August.
Yeah.
So
When
I
was that?
was.
Sorry, what year?
It was in 2015 that I
Okay.
came here. So 3.5 years ago. It's the
Yeah.
first time I came here. And we went off the plane, and I was like, I'm gonna die, because we went to Tel Aviv right away, and Tel Aviv is there. So Israel is the mountains, there's the desert, there's the beach, and when you go to the beach, it's the Mediterranean, and it's humid like you won't believe. And Tel Aviv is bad. So we went to Tel Aviv, and we were sweating, and we were like, oh my God, what did we do? So it was very hot, the first impression. But I really liked it.
Was it like you imagined? Was it like
Well, the thing is that in Denmark, you don't really know anything about Israel at all. Israel isn't on the radar when it comes to the news in Denmark. And you don't really, for the average Danish person, if it's not on the news, you don't really know about it because you don't have the time to sit down and study Israel. It's like if you study Middle East studies in the university, that's something you're going to learn about. But if you're just an average Joe on the street, you don't really know anything about Israel.
Yeah.
Whenever Israel's in the news, it's always about the conflict.
Yeah.
So you don't know, what's the nature like? What are the people like? I didn't even register in my mind that you speak Hebrew. It was so foreign to me. So when I came here, it wasn't like I imagined, because I imagined nothing, I think. I was like, oh, is it desert? Is it trees? What is it even like? So I just came here, and I was like, palm trees. I guess that makes sense. And there's some sand, and yeah, okay, this is Israel, I guess. And so...
Was people around you scared or worried when you said you're going to Israel, since all you hear in the news is the conflict?
Yeah, that was definitely... I mean, my uncle and my aunt, they're a bit older. They're a bit, like... I think my uncle was a educated butcher. That's his line of work. So they were, I guess, the most scared in my family. My mom was pretty cool with it, but she used to dive, so she's been in Israel before. She went to Eilat when she was younger to go diving.
It's a good diving site.
It's actually one of the best in the world.
Yeah,
it's considered.
I've heard that it's...
Yeah.
I mean, I don't dive with oxygen, so when I dive, it's like free diving. So I was just in the shallow waters when I was in Eilat.
I can't dive at all. Not even. I can barely put my head in the water because of ear.
You have an ear thing.
Ear issues.
Yeah.
But when I was in Thailand, I've been to Koh Tao, which is one of the bigger diving islands, and there was a lot of Australian there, like diving instructor, and people would ask, "Where are you from?" And I would say Israel. They say, "Oh, Eilat." And I was like, "Is it? How do you know Eilat?" It's like one of the best spots in the world. People come from all
apparently.
over.
So
Yeah, it's quite
I went.
famous.
I was diving in the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, And then I came to dive, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess, Eilat was like number 2 on that list or something like that. So I came. I don't know if number 2, but, it was in the top 10. I went there. To be honest, compared to the Great Barrier Reef, it's not, I wouldn't say that it's like, wow, it blew my mind, but it's really cool.
Yeah,
really,
but the
really
Great
cool.
Barrier Reef is
That's-
the top
it's-
of the
yeah,
top.
that's
It's so
great.
beautiful. I also went to the Great Barrier Reef before I came to Eilat, so I was also like, oh, okay, I guess.
Yeah.
You
No,
know.
it's amazing.
I don't know when I
But
was
it's
diving.
nice. There's a lot of fish. There's a lot of dolphins.
Yeah, the dolphins are cool.
Yeah.
When I was snorkeling in Kotao, so it's like snorkeling. It's not really diving, but you would see you see what's under the water.
Yeah.
Right? And it seemed like it was very cool, one of the best spot, but it didn't like Elat seems pretty cool next to it. Like
Yeah.
they seem kind of similar. It didn't seem like it was way better there.
I always thought you don't dive because you're scared. I didn't think
No.
it's... No, I'm kidding.
What
I'm
am
kidding.
I? Pussy?
All right. Well, so how would you say that your... So you said you didn't really have an opinion about Israel before you came. Like, you didn't really know anything about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And how would you say that your opinion is now about it?
Wow. That's a broad question. I mean, my opinion is a ton of things. I love it here. I think Israel really struck a nerve with me. Like I really felt like when you're in Denmark, it's a very polite country and everyone stands in line and people don't talk to each other in the supermarket or on the bus. Everyone's kind of doing their own thing. And Danish people are very warm once you get to know them, but they can be a bit sheltered when you just see them on the street. No one's really talking to each other unless they're friends. And here in Israel, it's like one big family, my business is your business. You don't really sit on the bus without anyone saying something to you. You don't stand in line at the grocery store without someone coming up and talking to you, and especially someone who speaks English, because then they know you're from abroad and then they want to know, why are you here? How do you like it? So it struck a nerve because it's like a family thing, it feels like you're in a big family here for better and worse, but it's
How would you describe the worst?
Yeah, I was going to ask
sometimes
that.
you want people to stop talking to you.
Just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, sometimes it's like that, but yeah, I guess I like that mentality of at least we're talking, even if we're fighting. Everyone kind of has an opinion on politics, on food, on the weather, on everything. So it's always a discussion here. And sometimes you're like, okay, this is my opinion, just leave me alone. But I like the whole, we're always trying to debate things and always trying to find new solutions and new things to talk about. That's a thing here in Israel, that people are always talking. They're always debating things. They're always interacting with each other. And I like that.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, that's it.
You mentioned the polite thing,
Yeah.
which is something I struggle with here. 'Cause
Being
people-
polite,
Well,
or the fact that people are not
the
polite.
fact that people can be assholes sometimes. And it happens a lot on the road. It happens when you stand in line. It happens
Yeah.
like almost every time I stand in line. I have to like
You have to
watch.
keep your place.
Yeah, I have to keep my place. I have to stand
Even against the
stand
old
my ground.
ladies. Like,
Yeah. Israelis, they always try to be better than
Yeah.
you always try to be in front of the
Yeah.
guy before you. And I struggle with it sometimes. I'm wondering how. Well, is it something that when you go to, so you accept it like as part of the interaction thing and you like it?
absolutely.
Or?
It's part of the culture. Well, I mean, do I like it? Obviously, I would like that people were a bit more, that they thought a little bit more about the person next to them before they act, And like you say, on the road and when you're standing in line, these are the places where you notice it very much.
Yes.
But I think, I've gotten used to it now. I just kind of deal with it, when I
So
stand
when
in
you
line
go back
here,
to
I just-
Denmark and you like stand in lines, you're like, yeah, this is better.
Yeah, you're more relaxed. But it's a cultural thing. Like if you don't teach your children how to okay, you don't do this now because that's gonna hurt somebody else. Like you don't just push forward because what if the guy behind you really had to hurry and he actually really wanted to keep that spot in line? If you don't teach your kids to think about that, they're not gonna think about that.
Yeah.
So I think it's a cultural thing that there are just some things that you do here in Israel. And because everyone drives like an asshole, you kind of have to drive like an asshole to get anywhere or not get hit by other cars.
True.
So it's, but I wouldn't say it's terrible, but it's definitely a big cultural difference from Denmark, because in Denmark people are very polite, almost too polite.
Would you say that there's something that, so let's say besides being a bit more polite and standing in line and things like that, is there anything that you see that is reversed that you wished Denmark would have from Israel? I mean, I think both me and Daniel and about every sane Israeli I know would agree that people here need to be a bit more polite, in line, on the road, when they drive. But is there something that you would say, I wish Denmark would have that?
Absolutely. Yeah. As I mentioned, the family thing, the interaction thing. I hate that, you can stand in an elevator with 20 people and no one is talking to each other. It's so weird. It's like we're 5.5 million people in Denmark and we don't talk. We're a very small country and no one really interacts. Everyone's doing their own thing.
5.5 million, really?
We're not a lot of people. Maybe it's 5.8. It's less than 6.
Yeah, I mean, you
always
always think about Israel as a small country, but Israel's almost 9 million people.
Yeah, you are breeding like crazy.
Yeah, man.
Like rabbits.
Yeah.
We like sex. I mean,
the Jews.
The Jews.
Yeah.
It's a known thing about us.
Yeah. No, but I mean, the interaction thing I wish was a thing in Denmark. I've talked to a lot of my friends who are also like me. They have a little bit more of an extroverted personality. They like the bit of a southern culture more, and they say the same thing. I have a friend who's half Romanian, half Spanish, and he did what I'm doing now. He did that in Barcelona, and he also came back with that urge to talk to people on the street. And I don't know, if someone's saying something funny, you reply to them even though you're not part of the conversation because you're interacting. So I think
I'm wondering why is the southern countries are more people are more friendly in southern countries. Maybe it's because it's hotter, so because it's a real thing. It's
it is a real
somehow
thing.
the geography and the climate, they influenced the culture so much. So the culture in Spain, for example, is they're friendly and they talk to each other, right? And in Denmark, it's a culture thing. They don't. But I feel like the cultural thing is influenced by the geography of the country, right?
It might be. I mean, I'll say that when I was in Denmark, it's not that people are not friendly. They're actually one of the nicest people.
Once you know them.
Yeah. They're one of the nicest people I've met once you get to know them.
Yeah.
It's so weird to me sometimes that people, as Tanya said, that they don't really talk to each other in the street. You know what I mean? Or on the bus or something. Like the buses there are quite quiet. They're
the bus in Israel, you hear the lady shouting on the phone, you hear the motor of the bus, you hear the radio of
and there's always that
driver.
13-year-old kid who thinks he's so cool playing his music
Yeah.
on speakers
Yeah.
in the back of the bus. It's like,
like
why
a
don't you
soundtrack.
use headphones, man. But it's like a soundtrack.
No,
for
but I
everybody in
think
the bus.
they want to be like, this is the soundtrack to my life. Like Kanye West is with me playing when I'm walking in the street.
Yes.
Go
Yeah,
Kanye,
yeah.
supporting
This
Trump.
is the soundtrack of my life.
Yeah.
All right. And would you say, all right, what is your favorite thing about Israel?
It's so difficult to pinpoint one thing
food.
because Israel has so many facets. Israel is such I'm going to use an SJW word now, but it's such a multicultural country because
Oh my God, we're so diverse.
Yeah, diversity.
It's amazing.
Oh my God. But there are so many cultures here because Jews came from all over the world. A lot of people have this idea that Jews only came from Europe. I think you talked about that on the last podcast also.
Yeah.
But it's literally like Yemenite, there are Asian people here, there are African people here, there are Americans, there are Europeans, they're all over the Middle East. And all those cultures came together. So obviously it's really difficult to pinpoint one thing because the country has so many sides. It's like a diamond. You can't ever find the thing like, I like this corner the best.
All right, not your favorite.
I'll give you a few things. Like I really like, and now I don't want to repeat myself too much, but the interaction thing. I like the people here.
Yeah.
I love the weather. I love the food. You know, in Denmark we have 9 months of winter. Here you guys have 9 months of summer, and I like
it's a
the
big
sun.
plus.
I like, you know, going outside in a dress instead of, you know, like 4 pairs of pants and
Yeah.
giant jacket
And a giant bear on top of
yeah.
the jacket to keep you warm.
Like a
A
bear.
bear
We just
skin.
walk around with bears in Denmark.
Bear
That's what we
skin.
do. Yeah.
It's like people think that Israeli people ride camels everywhere. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
just
which
ride camels.
which you do.
So you ride. Yeah,
essentially.
so mine is in the garage right now.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
getting,
Did you
Mine
feed
is
it
getting
today?
its toes.
getting his toes
fixed,
fixed.
yeah.
Actually, I had some friends that were working in the Dutch embassy in Israel, and then one of them told me that her friends asked her if she needs to walk around with a helmet here because it's dangerous.
From the rockets.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
or like the fighting in the streets.
They
and
probably
stuff
see
like
like
Yeah. The fighting in the streets.
Yeah, they see the reporters on television, right? In the center of Gaza or something.
that. Yeah.
That they have this helmet and they feel like also a helmet wouldn't really help you.
No,
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
if
In
a
the
bomb
case
is gonna
of,
fall on your face, the
yeah.
helmet's not gonna.
The bomb's
Yeah.
gonna fall on your face.
Well, I had this helmet on. Good thing I had.
It's not like falling on your bike. It's not
No.
not the equivalent of
No,
that.
not really.
yeah.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
I wanted-
there are a ton of things that I love about Israel. And I would say if there's one thing that I would elevate over everything else, it's not really the weather or the food, it's the people. The
right.
people here. I mean, Israelis are special. And I don't know if it's the history of the Jewish people. Obviously, not all Israelis are Jewish, but it is the vast majority of people here that are Jewish.
Pretty much.
I don't know if it's the history that created this fighter mentality, or it's the
I think-
weather. What it is. It's
I think
the conflict in the region. I don't
the-
know, but the Israeli people, they have this strong
Well,
fighter
first
mentality.
of all, we have where there's a strong sense of community, right?
Yeah,
With the Jewish people.
definitely.
Because
That's
it's
true.
something we had to develop over the years because we were never, or for a long time, we weren't together. We were all over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you'd see people in Morocco, I don't know, practicing Jewish or celebrating Jewish holidays, and people in Denmark, I don't know, Jewish people in Denmark celebrated Jewish.
Yeah.
So there was always, even if we were far apart, there was always the sense of community because we have certain values and cultural things and religious things that we have from a long time ago, and we kept it wherever we went. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's a strong sense of Jewish community. So I think that's part of the family thing you mentioned.
Yeah.
And the fighter mentality, I don't think it has to do anything. Well, first of all, you know, like there's the Jewish mother, my son is gonna be a doctor
Yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe Jewish people.
And if
they're,
not a doctor, then a lawyer. And if not a lawyer, then an engineer. And if
Yeah.
not an engineer, then it should probably be all three things. Because no way I'm going to be happy with him.
Yeah, and if you're not gonna be those, I'm gonna kill myself. So there's like the Jewish mother mentality thing. So I don't know, maybe Jewish people want to achieve more, but I think that, well, I feel like the fighter mentality you mentioned is because Israel is a new country.
Yeah.
So nothing is obvious, nothing is granted, right? So
Yeah.
you're not like born. Well, we were born into a country who's ready, right?
Yeah,
Sort of.
yeah.
But I mean, our grandparents, they when they were born, there was no Israel. They had to build
Yeah,
it. They
yeah,
had
yeah.
to build from the bottom. So I think that
No, and I would say also in our generation, like look, I mean, when me and you were born, we were born actually pretty close to each other. But in the 90s in Israel, I think the GDP was like $12,000 or something like that,
I don't know.
and now it's around $44,000. You know, it's a huge difference, and I feel like I would say that there is something about this fighter mentality, like from conversations that me and Tanya had before, where she said that she really sees like people here are constantly thinking about how to improve things, how to be more engaged, how to affect the political system, how to
Yeah.
change you know the company that they're working in, how to create a new startup and things like that. And it is, I mean, I wouldn't say it's only in Israel, but it's quite unique to Israel, all of these things working together.
Yeah.
You know which country I think is similar? Singapore. Since they were, I
Yeah.
was there a long time ago, 2006.
I
but
remember in 10th grade.
Yep. But since they are pretty much a new country as well, and they're They have a strong. They want to achieve great things, and they also take inspiration from Israel, kind
Yeah.
of, from what they
They're
told me.
also very small.
They're also a very small country, right? So they feel like because well, we're a new country, nothing is granted, we have to build. Then you have a sense of you want to succeed, you want to do good, you want to
Yeah.
do great things and help. I don't know, just help not only the country but help yourself, right?
Yeah.
Be the best you can.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. I think people in, well, I would say Europe, but it's huge generalization.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. You
Yeah.
can't
let's say
really.
people in developed countries,
Yeah. First
they
world
are,
countries.
let's say, well, they're not hungry, right?
Yeah.
They are, well, they have a good. Not that we have a bad life, but what I'm saying is they're not hungry. They're born into a country who's ready. Everything's fine. Everything's in place. Everything's working. And well, they just
They're
Do
lazy.
you agree?
Yeah,
Oh,
they're
well,
lazy.
I
No,
don't know
it's
if lazy.
no,
But
but not lazy in the sense that they don't want to work, but they're lazy in their creative ability to think about the future of the country. For example, in Denmark, like if you look at the political spectrum in Denmark, it's obviously there's a right and a left wing, but everyone is socialist. There's not a non-socialist party in Denmark. No one is talking about privatizing healthcare, right? The political spectrum in Israel is very, very wide. Like people are talking all the way from Bernie Sanders' crazy socialism to let's evict all the Palestinians and take this land for ourselves and have religious law. Like there's a very, very
yeah,
broad
huge
political spectrum because people are constantly thinking out of the box. They're thinking we could do the country this way, we can do the country that way. The fact that Denmark has been working, just mowing along for so long, people get lazy in their way of thinking about the country.
Yeah,
And they're
but
not
it's
like,
not
oh, we could also do it this way. We could.
there's no need.
Everyone's kind of like, well, I guess it's working.
Yeah, there's
let's
no
just
need
kind
to
of keep
improve.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that mentality is
But wouldn't you say that Denmark has not
Lazy.
just been like kind of working? It's been working actually quite well. Until I think a few years ago, Denmark was number one in almost every single
yeah, but
measurement of OECD countries.
yeah, but why are they working well? If you took Denmark and you put it here, would they still be working well? Of course not.
Yeah,
You know,
probably not.
Denmark is working well because we're surrounded by countries who are almost exactly like us and who don't want to hurt us, right? We didn't work very well when we were occupied by Germany in the Second World War,
The Germans.
right? Like we
Yeah.
just gave up. That's not a country that's working well if we can't defend ourselves.
Hold on, you're saying you
know?
just gave up? I
yeah,
know there's.
we
I know
laid
there's
down
like,
arms and we let the Germans invade us.
But wasn't there like a
There was a
Danish
tiny
resistance and
yeah,
stuff like
yeah, well yeah, there was a Danish resistance, but a country that's based on small resistance group. The thing is, like, the resistance didn't free Denmark. They just kind of sabotaged the German occupation a little bit, but they didn't free Denmark.
Yeah.
You know,
Like
and I think when you talk about a country, its sovereignty, how well it works, it needs to work in all situations. You know, I don't think that it needs to work only when all the people are white and only when all the people are socialist and only when no one is trying to invade you. You know, like the structure of a country, the system that the country is working under needs to work also in adversity, also in war times, also when there are a lot of immigrants coming in. And if it's not working, then I think you can surmise that country wasn't really ever working.
So you feel Denmark is working now because it's easy for them?
Yeah, that's what I feel. Because the thing is, Denmark, for example, we don't really have an army. So if Russia were to invade, I don't know if anyone other than Europeans or Northern Europeans know this, but Sweden just made it mandatory, I think about a year ago, that everyone goes to the army again because they're very scared that Russia is going to invade them. Wow. And the thing is, if Russia tries to invade Scandinavia, which is, I wouldn't say it's likely, but that would be a political strong move for them because they would get to control the waterway out to the Atlantic Ocean, which is a very strategically great thing to do.
Yeah.
We can't do anything. We can't do anything. We have no army. We have no protection. We have NATO, but the only reason NATO is working is because of America, And I don't see America going to war against the only other superpower in the world over Denmark.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
they're not going to do
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I'll be honest. It's a bit
So
like
I think, you can say that Denmark is working because we're all not trying to fight anybody. And, everyone's kind of okay with paying a lot of taxes. But even if you took all the Danish people and replaced them with the French, Denmark would stop working because the French just made
The fucking French.
massive riots in
Yeah.
Paris because of
Yeah.
the carbon tax, right?
Yeah.
We have crazy taxes in Denmark. That would never work with the French mentality. So I wouldn't say that Denmark is necessarily working very well. It's surviving because everyone in Denmark is like, let's not make any problems. Let's just kind of be quiet. We'll vote for the same party that we're always voting for.
So you don't
Nothing's
have
gonna
protests?
change.
It does never protest there.
We don't have violent protests, really. Like, we have protests where students who get paid crazy amounts of money in scholarships, they're protesting because they want to lower the scholarships because we can't afford to pay scholarships.
Wait, students
But-
are protesting against.
no. The government in Denmark gives a scholarship, so like something to help you
Yeah, I
live
know what a scholarship
every
is.
month. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's basically like a paycheck from the government, and then the government sometimes they say like, oh, listen, we can't afford to support someone who did a degree in literature, philosophy, and Greek history, and has been in university for 9 years, but hasn't actually produced anything. So they want to lower it.
Well, they can't afford to do that for anybody. The thing is, Denmark is a very, very expensive country to run because we're very socialist. So everything is basically paid for by the government. And that will be your taxes. And we're just not making enough money to pay for all these things. So the government's constantly trying to figure out ways to pay less. So they're talking about, oh, maybe we'll take a little bit of money out of this, and maybe we'll take a bit of money out of that. So whenever there's protests, it's because of that. They're trying to lower the funding for some type of social structure, be it free educations. Like they actually just closed, I think it was 2 years ago, they closed a bunch of different educations in the University of Copenhagen. You could be, and like, hold on, an Eskimologist.
And as a what?
An Eskimologist. Yeah, that was a thing in the University of Copenhagen.
Study Eskimos?
Yeah. And
Like the dudes in the north with the igloos?
yeah.
I mean, I'm
yeah,
sure they have a fascinating lifestyle, but like,
this was a publicly
it's
funded
ridiculous.
education. Like, my taxpayer dollars, it's not what we use in Denmark, we use krona, but my taxpayer dollars, to use an American phrase, went to paying for someone to get an education in Eskimology. It was ridiculous. And we had a bunch of these, like, I think
yeah.
we educate about 30 priests a year, and we don't need priests, right?
Yeah.
But
It's
isn't
ridiculous.
that important? I don't know. For like,
30 a year? I doubt it.
is
Like,
it a lot? 30? It doesn't
30
seem-
a year for a country of 5.5 million people where most
30
people are
priests a
secular?
year.
Absolutely. That's a ridiculous amount of priests, right? So the Danish society is really expensive because there are a lot of these things that are remnants from back when we started socialism and we were more into Eskimology, I guess. And now they're realizing, like, okay, people are having less and less kids. There are less and less people paying taxes. We can't afford these things. We have to close it. So people get angry because they're like, they look at their tax sheet, and that didn't get any smaller. They're still paying the same amount of tax, but they're getting less and less. You know?
So I understand the subtext of what you're saying, that you don't agree with this.
Yeah, not
policy.
socialist at all, but
Are you a minority in Denmark?
yeah, definitely. Like I told you, the political spectrum spans from left to right, but
Yeah.
it's left to right inside of socialism.
Yeah.
Even the Liberal Party in Denmark, they're still socialist. They're more
So-
capitalist in the way that they look at companies. So they want companies to be able to fare well in Denmark, but they understand that they can't campaign on privatizing healthcare. Because that's kind of such a foreign idea for
Yeah,
Danish
nobody's
people
gonna
that
agree with
that
it.
people will be like, what are you, crazy?
Yeah.
No one would ever vote
So,
for a party like
I
that.
have a question. So let's say when Sweden says, okay, we're going to start re-enlisting people into the army.
Yeah.
aren't there no politicians in Denmark that are saying, hey, if they're doing it, maybe we should start doing something about this?
In Denmark, that didn't happen. No. I think Sweden and Denmark, even though we are very close geographically and also obviously politically, and they're just across the water from Copenhagen, you can see Sweden from Copenhagen.
Yeah.
They have a very different way of dealing with their society. They're much more pro social justice. They're much more politically correct.
Okay.
But they're much more afraid of Russia. I think maybe Denmark, I don't really know, because the politicians haven't had this conversation publicly about what we're going to do with our army. But I think maybe they just realized that regardless of whether we enlist all the men of fighting age, we're still not going to have a chance against Russia.
Yeah.
So
Probably.
I think they just realized it's not worth it to spend so much money enlisting such a big part of the country, because it is going to be money, and that money we're going to have to take from somewhere else when we can't use the army anyway, because if they want to invade us, they're still going to do it.
Are there voices in Denmark expressing a different opinion?
About the army specifically?
No, about socialism, about the left, about...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see this, I think you see it play out very much in America with the social justice. You have Bernie Sanders, you have that crazy woman, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, who became the, mayor of New York? No, she became the senator of New York. She was elected in some New York election, and she... Crazy socialist, right? And then you have the social justice warriors, and then you have the counterculture of the right, and you have that happening in Denmark as well. So whenever there's something being talked about in America, like socialism versus capitalism, we talk about it in Denmark as well, and people are waking up to a bit more of a non-socialist way of doing things. So there are people voicing opinions that they want more of a libertarian approach to government. Government should have less power in Denmark. And even our conservative party, they're talking about flat tax now, which we don't have in Denmark, which is also a bit more of a capitalist idea. It's a bit more of a libertarian idea. So there are voices, but from a country where most people are socialists in their mentality, that's a very, very far step. Like, it's a big, big jump to go from socialism to capitalism. And it's a big change. Like, there's no way you're going to go from socialism to capitalism without, for a while, lowering your quality of life. That's the way that change happens. And I think that people are not mentally ready for that. So, there are voices, there are certain politicians who are talking about it. There are certain blogs, but it's far from being anything that's going to be...
What about that comedian, Jonathan Spang?
No, but I don't think he's actually... He's a comedian who does a talk show on our one of our publicly funded media channels. He does like a weekly breakdown of the culture and the news, but with a very sarcastic, very critical...
Yeah, I've seen some of his stuff with English
he's funny,
subtitles.
He's really good, but I don't think he doesn't criticize socialism. No,
but
criticizes
I'm saying,
little
what
things,
does he criticize?
Like this politician who said that, and that was very hypocritical because last year he said this, and he criticizes that bank because they were caught in a money laundering scam, but he doesn't actually say, "Oh, let's all be capitalists." That's not how far he goes, because I think that mentality is hard to sell in a country like Denmark. It's a slow process.
I'm wondering about now that you've been here for 3.5 years now, right?
Well, I haven't been here for 3.5 years, but I've been in and out of Israel for 3.5 years. Yeah.
So when you go back to Denmark, what are people like? What's the opinion of people really about Israel? And do you tell them new stuff they didn't know? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I told you, the opinion of Danish people is made by what they hear on the news, and Israel's hardly ever on the news. Only when, during the last war in Gaza, you were on the news. During the opening of the U.S. embassy, there were a lot of news because that's also when the riots in Gaza started.
Yeah.
It's not
so-
when it started, but
yeah,
it just,
but
it got to a certain
intensified
peak.
very,
Yeah.
very much right around that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're on the news very infrequently and only about the Israel-Palestine conflict. It's never about like, oh, Bibi was charged in whatever. You know, that's not a thing in Denmark. We don't care about that. Of
course.
Yeah.
So is there
so
even an
most
opinion?
people in Denmark, yeah, there is an opinion because when you are on the news, when Israel's on the news, it's always Israel bombed Gazans. Terrible, you know. So there is an opinion. There's a very anti-Israeli opinion. There's also a pro-Israeli opinion because there are, like, Danish people travel a lot. So a lot of people that come here and see the country, see the truth, see the conflict, talk to Palestinians, talk to Israelis, they understand that there's a lot more to it than what you think. So there are pro-Israelis and there are a lot of pro-Palestinians. We also have a massive Muslim community, especially in the big cities in Denmark. And there is a thing in the Arab world that everyone in the Arab world, not everyone obviously, but a lot of people in the Arab world, they hate Israel. And they bring that with them, obviously.
Are they immigrants?
Yeah. Well, generations of immigrants. Some of them
Okay,
are first
so-
generation. Some of them are third, fourth, fifth generation. But
Okay.
but it comes from the family. You know, if mom and dad talks about how terrible Israel is, you're going to talk
No,
about that as
what
well.
I'm trying to ask are those like Syrian immigrants. That's what I'm trying.
Syrian, they're Pakistani, they're Iranian,
So
they're
not all
Palestinian.
recently, not all recently from the war in Syria.
No, I mean there is a big Syrian immigrant community, but there was a giant Iranian. There's a big Iranian community also because they came after the Iranian Revolution. They're usually the ones that have several degrees, several generations behind them.
I didn't
They're
know that.
Pakistani immigrants. Also, there are a
Would
lot
you
of
say that,
Middle Eastern.
the recent immigration waves into Europe, you know, like whether they are refugees or work immigrants or whatever, people, you know, from Syria actually fleeing their lives, people from, you know, somewhere in sub-Saharan Africa saying, oh, I can get a great job in Germany or something. Would you say that that influenced people's opinion about Israel-Palestine? Because I noticed with a lot of Germans or Eastern Europeans that I speak with, or Italians, that ever since these immigration waves started and the terrorist attacks in Europe, all of a sudden it's a lot easier to explain Israel's position.
Well, yeah, I get where you're coming from. So basically, what happens when you have a large Muslim community in Copenhagen, and if the way that they feel about Israel is that Israel's a terrible country, and you become like ethnically Danish people become friends with these kids because they go to school together, and if they ever talk about this, they kind of just adopt the opinion of their friends, and that definitely slowly started changing after the big immigration wave, because what the big immigration wave into Europe did is that it shifted a lot of opinion right. So people became a lot more nationalist. They became a lot more isolationist after the giant immigration wave because they saw that these giant culture clashes, when they happen too quickly and when it's too big of a group, it will fail, because a country that's as Western as, for example, Germany, that accepts, I think it was like 1.2 million immigrants they accepted so far. That's a massive part of their population.
Yeah.
That comes from cultures that are radically different. I mean, radically different. And it's not necessarily Muslim, because it's also African Christians, but it's just that the culture is so different that there will be these massive clashes, because you believe this about the role of women in society and we believe this, and you can't.
So do you see something changing in
I mean,
Denmark?
people are becoming more right-wing, and with that right-wing change is also maybe Israel does have something to say here. But that's more, I think, of the anti-Muslim sentiment. Like, people become a bit anti-Muslim, and then they're like, well, F all the Muslims, and Palestinians are Muslims, so that I feel they become a bit more soft on Israel because they hate their enemies a bit more.
Okay,
I don't necessarily think that it's because they educate themselves better. I think it's more of a reactionary way of thinking, because people, aren't very educated about these things. You
Yeah.
know, they're
I
not
mean,
on the news, and
Can
people
you
don't go and
expect them
read.
to be, honestly? Like, I don't.
No, I mean, like if it was Sweden, I would expect them to be educated
Yeah.
because it's their neighboring country. But
Yeah.
it's Israel. It's a tiny country in the
Yeah.
Middle East. It
People
doesn't
have
affect
their
you.
lives. They have their
It's
work.
really
Yeah.
far
their
away.
family.
Yeah,
You know.
so that's why I'm saying it's more of a reactionary thing, because what really affects them is the Muslim immigration. So they become anti-Muslim,
Yeah.
and then they're like, Palestinians are Muslims, f the Muslims. That's what I think it did. But it did change the spectrum of opinion a little bit.
Yeah. All right. So, okay. That's
But
interesting.
regarding what you said, like, do I tell people new things? Obviously, like a lot of people don't know it here, and I also tell people non-political things.
Of course, yeah.
Like I love talking about Israel. How we went there, and this is beautiful, and you should come. And I send my friends photos of the food, and like I try to make
that's
them
our
come
life.
here.
That's our life eventually, right?
Yeah.
We don't like sit around thinking about
Of
politics
course.
or
like
war
you don't
every day.
sit and stare at the border of Gaza every day,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh my god, I guess what's gonna happen today? You live your life.
Yeah, we
here,
have our life.
You go
There's,
out, you go for drinks, you have your friends, you go hiking, you go traveling, and that's what I tell people about Israel.
Where's
because
your
that's
favorite place to hike?
up north.
Up
For
north?
sure, yeah. I think because I'm from Denmark, and we have in Northern Europe, we have this great nature. We have rivers, and we have big lakes and big forests and tall trees, and we don't have mountains in Denmark, but in Norway they have a lot of mountains, and so the north is what reminds me a bit of that, with the mountains and the somewhat resemblance of forests and. I'm not too crazy about the desert. I think it's very different, and
Because
it
actually
looks cool, but
a lot of the Europeans I met, especially the Germans, I'm not sure what, but Germans, they come here and they're like, the desert is amazing.
I
It's
love
so
the desert.
beautiful. It's so silent. I'm like, it's not silent. It's dead. There's
I
nothing
love
there.
I love the desert. It's my
it's a
favorite
thing.
part.
It's a thing in Israel. It's either you love it or you hate it.
I love the desert.
Yeah,
I-
there is
I
no
hate
like,
it.
the desert. I guess it's okay. It's
First of
either
all-
like, it sucks, or it's like, wow, it's my favorite thing
I
ever.
think it's beautiful. I think it's a beautiful area, and I think it's like so peaceful, and it's like, I don't know.
I can't.
Yeah,
I just,
I need some trees. I
Yeah.
need some vegetation, some animals,
I need some,
some sound,
Yeah.
some
exactly.
water,
Tanya,
something. Yeah.
are you gonna stay with us here, or are you leaving us?
Well, I'm leaving you for a while, but I'm coming back. I
You
think
coming back? And do you see your future here?
yeah, I do. I think when you're a couple across nationalities, you're gonna have to choose, and it's either you choose one or the other's country, or you choose a third country.
Yeah.
And I think me and Tom, we love our countries too much to choose a third one. And I think I'm looking at the greater sum of happiness, where we're going to create the greater sum of happiness, both for the two of us, but also for our future kids. And I think that would be hands down Israel. They will feel a bit Jewish because they're going to have a Jewish dad. Hopefully at some point also a Jewish mom. But we'll see if I manage that conversion.
That's heavy.
Yeah, it's a long process. But I think that they're gonna feel that this is their family and this is their homeland. And that's what I want for them and my husband.
Nice.
Well, we love you too, and thank you for
Especially
coming.
I love
me.
you.
Especially me.
Yeah, thank you.
It was
That's
a
so
great
nice of you.
pleasure.
Yeah.
It was
And,
really a
it
pleasure.
It was good coffee too.
We'll have
Great
you again
coffee.
for sure.
Okay.
We'll have
Yes.
you again
I'm
for
looking
sure.
forward to it.
100%.
Thank you very much for listening.
Yalla.
Have a great week.
Bye guys.
See you
Shabbat
next
shalom.
time.
Have fun.
Bye.
Bye.